who are who are interested in something like that. We have the applications are open on our website, and we are accepting applications through the end of January. So very excited for all of that upcoming. And we'll have several virtual offerings throughout the year as well, which will be listed on our website.
Thanks, Tiffany. Yeah, and we do, I guess, again, just to focus on, our target audience is typically technical educators at community technical colleges. However, we are not exclusive, right? So a lot of high school teachers do a lot of technical education as well. So I think Tiffany and I both tend to talk about kind of technical educators and community colleges, but it is not an exclusive type of a opportunity. We certainly would welcome if you know any, or if you are a high school teacher that that teaches these types of topics, you're certainly welcome. And on the other side as well, if someone teaches at four-year school but teaches technical aspects, they're certainly welcome to come as well. I apologize for skipping over that first slide, Tiffany. I think I'm doing this thing where I'm being impatient. I double-click the progression. All right, so next thing I'll cover real quick is the immersive ed design. So what is immersive ed design? This is a phrase that we've somewhat coined, but basically, if you're familiar with, as we all are, really, online education, online educational delivery methods, and authoring softwares, like Articulate 360 or something like that, that basically takes information and puts it into a more interactive way, but not certainly into a simulation way. If you take that and you work with a team of people who develop simulations, what you have is something that is not just kind of an online course module. It's not just this simulation that looks cool and is fun to do, but by blending them, what we're able to do is provide an experience for students that they are kind of working. I'll get to this. So they're in an environment where they are receiving all the information as coursework while they are kind of on the front end of the module, and then they would enter into the actual simulation itself to conduct whatever simulation of hands-on interactive work, and then return back to that course module for assessment. This all works nicely with LMSs, so it's kind of drops in, because again, as a faculty member, resources I find are the best when they can be easily integrated into a class, right? If I have to do a whole bunch of legwork on the front and back end, or if I have to do a whole bunch, if it's a difficult process for me to use them in my class, it's just one more reason why I might not use it, right? And so we're trying to make these as turnkey as possible. So, what, again, just to quickly kind of go over the immersive ed component, it is that paired simulation and coursework. What we typically focus on from the Earth Center are desktop simulations. This would be more of an interface of a computer screen. You would use your mouse to control it, not VR goggles, not using your phone as a extended reality device. And there's really two primary reasons why we consciously went down this road. One, accessibility. Everybody has a computer or a phone at this point, pretty much. All students have access to a phone or a computer at this point. Not all students have access to virtual reality goggles, right? So developing coursework that only utilizes virtual goggles, while it has its place, we didn't feel like it was probably the largest potential audience for our material, and frankly, just because it can be put on the VR goggles doesn't mean that it's necessarily the most effective avenue. And then they are, as I said, meant to be drop-in. Where we really try and focus on are, as this fourth bullet says, we really are trying to hone in on things that are either difficult to recreate in a classroom, difficult to access, expensive, or inherently dangerous. And as it says, it does allow them to fail without physical consequences. And so going back to this slide, so these are some that we have been working on recently and completed a couple of them. One of them is a simulation that allows students to test voltage and current on energized circuits in a utility scale solar situation, right? So uh, sometimes in the solar world, you have to work on energized circuits. It's the way that it has to be. Taking students out for the first time to do this kind of work in the field is not something that really any instructor looks forward to. And so what we're trying to do with the simulation is at least give students an understanding of the what, when, and kind of why and how they're going to go about doing this, give them an opportunity to walk through it in a simulated environment so that they are at least experiencing it. We use industry equipment from our 3D modeling to get so it looks like a real experience. And then so hopefully then by the time the student's done with that module or that simulation, they have at least walked through. It doesn't take the replace of in person, but it does help. We also do some work with environmental health and safety. So this would be identifying and remediating hazardous waste sites, right? So again, something that is hard to simulate or hard to mock up at a college, in a classroom, but this gives you a way to safely identify and create plans for mitigation. We also have some other ones like this is just a basic pH tester and some other kind of more general, but we are certainly open to suggestions if people have ideas for uh, stimulations. Mentoring, this is just a quick, we do if you're interested or you know faculty interested in potentially pursuing ATE funding, please send them our way. I'd be happy to help. One of the other things that we've recently put together is a map of what we would call a fairly extensive. I don't want to claim that it's all inclusive because I feel like an overly ambitious statement, but a broad collection of the schools that teach environmental technologies across the country. This is basically there's a couple points of having a map like this. One, if a student is looking for somewhere to find a program. Two, if a faculty member is looking for maybe where there's other programs that are similar to theirs so they could connect and network with other instructors. And really the third too is to have this interface of where um, using it to see if there are hot spots of employment that are not paired with where these types of educational programs are being offered. We can use that to reach out to community college to make them aware of an opportunity for training programs, or vice versa. If there are colleges that don't have strong connections to industry employers, trying to work with them to see if there's an opportunity for them to pivot their programs a little bit so that their students do have better successes for employment. So use this in a number of ways, but this is on our website if you would like to check that out and see. If you are at a college that does something in this world and you're not on this, please let us know. You can self complete the survey and it will populate it on the map. And then lastly, yeah, just again, this is our contact information, our website. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out directly, but I'll stop there and turn it back over and we'll happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming today and sharing that information. I will turn it over to the group. If anyone has questions, feel free to just unmute yourself.
How long have you guys been doing this work and how many teachers have you trained? I'm sorry if I missed that earlier.
No, that's a good question. So it's like any good story, it's a slightly complicated one. But so the Earth Center, as it stands today, we've been around, I'm going to call it, for about a year and a half. There was a previous iteration of the Earth Center that was at another college, at which I mentioned before, I was a co-PI. So basically, we had it was funded, and right around the time it got funded, the original PI needed to retire. And so it kind of got funded and then sat still for a minute. And then finally, we were able to get it shifted to my college. So this iteration of the Earth Center has really been around for about a year and a half. If you take a step back, though, the Earth Center is kind of a continuation of something called ATEC. People might be familiar with ATEC. That was around for a couple of decades. And yeah, the impact of instructors there, hundreds. So they had ATEC for quite a while had a really extensive library of resources, much like Clean Network does, or a lot of other folks. For them, I think over time it started to, they embraced others kind of hosting these types of resource databases, and so moved away from that. But I mean, I can speak from experience. As I said before, my first experience with ATE was as a participant in a professional development that I went to in 2009 to the National Renewable Energy Lab that ATEC had organized. So similar to kind of one of the things that we're doing. And I met about half a dozen to a dozen instructors that I still communicate with today. As a person who was teaching renewable energy at a college and was the only person that taught renewable energy at my college, it was amazing to go somewhere and meet all of these other faculty who had kind of, similar experiences. And so it's interesting because I'd say that some of my more long-term professional relationships, what I'd call colleagues, because of some things like Earth Center ATEC, ATE, or because they were able to put us in a similar room. And now folks from California and Wisconsin and Florida and New York, that's who I call when I have a question about something in class. I'll ask questions if nobody has questions. So I'm fairly new to the Clean Network. So, and I see through the introductions that I saw before, it looks like most folks on the call, well, I guess Colleen, so are you are you running out of a college or no?
No, we're a nonprofit organization, and so we do statewide work, and I partner with the program that I put in the chat there, but we are not a college.
I see.
Yeah, we do a lot of different kind of work, but as an education director, I do like K-12 classroom visits, teacher trainings, curriculum development, public education, that sort of thing around the state.
I guess I'm curious to know if anybody is aware, like even knew the existence of ATE, the division of National Science Foundation. It's one that I feel like is a gem that most people don't even know exists.
Yeah, it's new to me.
It's new to me as well. So yeah, I appreciate you coming and sharing that with us. I've seen that in the
Yeah.
chat.
And really, if you do know, if you have colleagues at technical colleges, it's a great opportunity. And frankly, as far as National Science Foundation funding goes, anecdotally, it's got really good odds of getting funded compared to some of the other divisions of National Science Foundation because of the fact that, community colleges don't typically live in the grant-funded research world. And so a good idea has a good chance of getting funded. So, and we can partner with other people. So if you have a good idea for technical workforce education, you can partner with a two-year college. It's not like it has to only be administered or run through a two-year college. So it's a good way for universities, high schools, colleges to all work together, a nonprofit organization.
Yeah, I've gotten myself approved as an instructor to be able to teach like some of their classes to high school students. They can get credit, which is nice. So that's like how I've partnered with them in other ways. We're trying to do more of that. So
Nice.
see, it would be great if we could have some more Alaska stuff on that map.
Yeah, and maybe we should follow up, Colleen, because I think what I'd like to do is a 2025 Alaska professional development. We did one many, many years ago, and it had really good feedback. The logistics are, it's a step further than continental, and it's a meaningful experience. And so, yeah, I would be. That is not a passing statement. I'm genuinely interested in following up about that.
Well, I'll throw my email in the chat. I partnered with Kidwin to offer a 5-day professional development up here in Fairbanks this summer. And I'd love to, 2025, if you're interested, let's talk.
Andrew, I have a question. I work in the international, at the international level, so working with schools and learning communities all over the world. Do you have a partnership with colleges or universities in any country other than the US? Because I know a lot of community college or the equivalent of community colleges or higher education institutions who are always looking to partner with US-based higher education institutions to learn and maybe start partnerships. Do you have that at all? Is it
Yeah,
something?
so we do. I mean, so I guess it's one of those things where, we as the Earth Center have partnerships with universities, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and one of the colleges we work with is in Madison, Wisconsin, and they have a partnership with University of Wisconsin. Not so much around international programming, that part. But again, that's not to say that we couldn't. I guess I will say that I hadn't thought about this for today's conversation, but very quickly, I mean, one of the things that has been very unique for my experience as a community college instructor, I have, as part of the NSF, I've been to Australia, New Zealand, Germany, Denmark, Hawaii. I just got back from Iceland and I'm going to Norway, all as a community college instructor teaching renewable energy, right? And so that's all been funded from the division of ATE. And so that while, I would say compared to some of our 4-year sister institutions, we don't sometimes have that global perspective, but for the world of renewable energy, we certainly have taken that perspective because we have a lot to learn from our global partners. And so, yeah, it's been a very unique, my experience as a faculty member at a community college has been a fairly unique one, largely because of my experience with National Science Foundation.
Thank you. Good to know. I'll explore. We have a network. There's a network called Global Response to Education and the Environment Network, which brings together all the non-government organizations and researchers who work in countries, not just Europe, but Africa, Southeast Asia, and whatever, to share solutions. Because no one knows what to do with climate. No one knows how to integrate it at the primary level, at the high school level, at the higher education level. Everybody's saying, help. Let's share information. So we created a network just to that, the equivalent of CLEAN, but for the international scene. And we need to just cross-pollinate because we don't have a funding. This network has been going on for 2 years. Everybody loves it. We get the best unpublished research shared, what's happening in India, in Pakistan, whatever. I don't have a penny for it, but we still have that colonization, opportunity. So that's why I'm asking. No one has the answers. So only collective power can come up with answers. You came up with an answer.
What is the name of that group again?
I'm going to put the link in. It's called GREEN, Global Response to Education and the Environment Network. We recently got a researcher from UCLA that shared information with us, the latest information on the impact of extreme heat on learning, and so on cognitive development, on assessment, academic assessment, on absenteeism from teachers to students. I mean, schools are closing down because of climate change. They're closing down, students stop learning, teachers stop teaching, and everything's focused on, a lot of funding is focused on renewable energy, transportation, clean energy, but no one is really investing in the science on education, the teaching, the curriculum development. It's tiny, it's very project specific, and there's just no global funding for it. Everything goes to other sectors. So in order to teach and support schools and higher education institutions, we are we're just tearing our area. Even though we're starting to get the data that shows the impact is just, really serious with, and especially for girls, and whether it's Asia or Africa, when the school closes, they don't go back. They just don't go back. So we're losing generations of girls. Anyway, that's all. I'd be happy to do a presentation on that at one point, but it's international. The issues are the same, right? I mean, contexts are different, but issues are the same.
I actually saw on LinkedIn this morning a interview of the education person from earthday.org by a LinkedIn employee, I think, who is directing their climate change education for business, or words to that effect. I'll see if I can find that link, and the video was actually recorded at COP yesterday or today. So
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah. So businesses just don't believe in education. I'm sorry to say, because they want results right away. They want deliverables. And as all of us know here, it takes a long time to show outcomes in education. It's just so frustrating. But thanks. Yeah. If you see anything, let me know. Trying to keep track of it all. That said, Norway and Sweden and the Scandinavian countries, they've just pledged at COP, they just pledged extra funding. But in terms of, supporting people like us, we know how to network, we know where the best practices are, where the failures are, we can promote the agenda. There's no funding. It's really hard to find funding for, to sustain collective power, the one that we are. We'll get there. I don't know when, but we'll get there.
Yeah, Andrew and Tiffany, many of us in the Clean Network kind of work in the K-12 sector in some capacity, K-12 education. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on kind of what you wish were happening at those levels, or what kind of scaffolding you see to kind of support the work that you're doing at more the community college level.
Yeah, it's for sure. So, I think one of the things that I love is seeing technical education being done at the high schools, or at least some, as best that some iteration of technical education, because I think it does open up students' eyes to education as pathways, not just a linear progression that has one defined, the higher the educational level, the better the outcome. I'm somebody who has a degree from a university, but I, for the most part, before I worked at this college, always used the technical skills that I gained throughout my life. And I think having students understand and appreciate the value of technical education and technical workforce, and the fact that it isn't, that there are not just jobs, but really promising careers in them. But there's also limitations to what some people want to do with technical work. And so knowing that you can then take that experience and go to a university and progress to some other level is also, I mean, so I guess maybe the thing that I would say, I'll back up. Just including us in the conversation is appreciated, right? High school, university, it's not just like that. There's this other thing. It's not even in the middle. It can be, but it's, you know, it's a part of the conversation. It's much appreciated. Um, Lastly, what I'll say is, at least in North Carolina, pretty sure it's everywhere else, you take your first 2 years at a community college, even just as university transfer, your degree still says UNC Chapel Hill on it when you graduate. It doesn't say asterisk first 2 years at community college, but the value of the savings to that student, if they're paying for their own tuition, is immense. I would love it if every high school student was aware of that as well.
And
Yeah,
more
and I don't mean
credit
to. If you all
options.
have if you have other business, I'm sorry. What was that?
Sorry, I was just more dual credit options, getting college credit in high school. Start them out. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I don't mean to take the rest of you all's meeting. If you all have other business or other conversations, I'm happy to pass the mic back and just be a participant.
Sounds good. We don't have any set agenda at this point. This is kind of open, informal at this point. And yes, we'd love for you to join us in that conversation. I want to make sure we don't have any other questions for Andrew and Tiffany about their presentation. But if not, we can kind of open it up. I know we didn't really get a chance to talk about events or announcements or things that might be going on in your world. So I think we can kind of wrap up there if anyone has any big announcements they want to share with the group.
Well, if any of you are interested, again, at the international level, we Green, this network that I was talking about, we're doing a roundtable on December 10th on measurement. So how to measure climate change and education. And we have panelists from UNESCO, from the World Bank, and from University of Albany, New York. If you're interested, let me know, or just go to connect to Green, and the information is going to be there. Again, if we have the data for measurement, then we can look for funding for education. So thank you.
I work with Climate Generation, which is a nonprofit based in Minnesota. We do events around kind of climate policy, climate education, and youth climate activism. So I'll share our events page. We do have a few things coming up in November. The first is November 20th. We have our monthly Teach Climate Network meeting. So we'll do a workshop on strategies to engage teens in climate action in their communities. So again, that's on November 20th. We also have delegates at the COP, whatever you call it, the COP event. And so we're doing kind of a live from Baku presentation with them on November 21st, if anyone's interested in hearing about kind of on the ground, what they're experiencing, what they've learned. So those are our November events, if anyone is interested.
It's not me, but organization I work with a lot, Kidwind, has some great webinars and Spark sessions and stuff coming up. So, including one today, I think. So, the webinar on their Kidwind stuff.
Great. Well, I know we have a few minutes left. And so, of course, if you have more to share, feel free to stay on and we can continue chatting. But if not, I'll give people back a couple minutes in your day. Great to see you all. Again, Tiffany and Andrew, thank you so much for presenting today, and apologies for the technical difficulties at the beginning. But
Yeah,
thanks,
no
everyone.
problem. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate the invitation and the platform.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you all for motivating. We need motivation to keep going with this work, with this new
Thank you.
administration. So thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.